What's up, TAC listeners? Welcome to another episode of the Artful Chiropractor podcast. My name is Ray Daniels, and I'm thrilled to bring to you Dr. Lauren Koedyk. Yes, she was a previous guest on this podcast, and definitely a favorite amongst them. So I've been able to connect with her recently. She was at the Level 1 ANTC training camp not too long ago here in the Bay Area. And it was actually the first time we got to meet in person, and it was like we've known each other for a long time. But Dr. Lauren, she is on fire right now. She's led seminars and retreats this last year, and she's just going all in. She has this vision and this purpose of connecting women back to their inherent power and being a reflection for them, because so many women are trying to learn the art of chiropractic, the communication of chiropractic through the lens of the dudes in the profession. And there is an inherent disconnect from learning from someone who isn't really like you in a lot of aspects. So she's bringing that to the surface, and she's doing an amazing job. She's doing the work. She's working her ass off to empower these women, and I'm excited for you to hear this conversation. And even the dudes out there, there are so many takeaways, so I think you'll enjoy this as well. But without further ado, enjoy this episode with the one and only Dr. Lauren Koedyk. Dr. Lauren, welcome back to the Artful Chiropractor.
Hey, Ray. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, of course. It's awesome to be able to talk to guests, multiple times, and we've been able to connect a lot more recently, just having you come to the Level 1 ANTC camp in the Bay, which was so rad. And since then, we've been able to connect and stay in touch a little bit more, so it's been really nice.
It has been really nice. Yeah, it was like when we met, it kind of took me by surprise when I met you for the first time in person at the Level 1 camp, because after speaking last time on the podcast and just remaining kind of in contact, I felt like I'd known you for forever. So it's wonderful. I'm really grateful for this connection.
Yeah, definitely. That was surprising, like giving her a hug and just like, actually, this was our first time meeting in person, but it's like felt like we've known each other forever.
Yeah, that's my experience for sure.
That's actually kind of a cool place to start. I mean, you don't often see too many docs jumping into other seminars kind of the way you did. And even though there are more and more docs getting involved with adjusting ninjas, you have your own community, that you're building, which is amazing, and we're going to dive into that later. But it was really cool to see you kind of dive in. You've heard of adjusting ninjas. You weren't really like thrilled on the name, just kind of thrown off by it, but like you connected with Brett and you're like, you felt called to checking it out. So I'd love to hear that process just a little bit, and then maybe what you took away from the camp.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just had an impromptu trip out into the Bay a couple weeks before what you guys coined the super camp, and ended up having the fortune of connecting with Brett. And what a wonderful that was. I was so grateful for that time, because what I was taken by was just how wonderful it was just to be in Brett's presence, to actually be with him, drive with him, and really see what he's about and what you guys are all creating. That was very magnetic, and to connect also with some of what you guys call the ninjas, getting down with your lingo, just such heart-centered, community-driven people, and those are really values that I hold closely to how I walk in the world. And so it was a very like an alignment decision. And when Brett put it out to me, like, hey, like, you're welcome to join, come on in. I think maybe some docs feel that, they're not welcome, or that there's going to be some type of separation between the doc coming into a student-driven initiative. And I didn't feel that at all. I was, welcomed with open arms and had an absolute ball all weekend. That I was exhausted. You guys trained early. You guys trained so early. I think, those early mornings to come back into practice the week after. But it was incredible. It excited to see that level of commitment, that level of execution, and for the chiropractic adjustment. It really, I mean, KTC and the ninja movement has raised the bar in chiropractic in a way that I hadn't seen before, and it's incredible. What you guys are churning out is very, very, very impressive, and I felt very honored to be welcomed, so warmly into your community.
Yes, and it was so amazing, getting to see you, check people and adjust people as well. Like, that was like so powerful. Like, usually, Brett and Lance are leading, but then there was, other lead facilitators and docs coming in, and then you getting to come in, you just taking that opportunity. And that was like just so powerful to see so many different, expressions of, the adjustment coming together. I love getting to, watch you adjust, because it's been so long since the first time I saw you at, John Martinez's seminar back in my like third or fourth quarter. It's just power, to see what's possible from different people. But, and going back to what you said of, the KTC movement, is setting a high standard, but then it's like, it's also bringing other, tribes up as well. And it's not necessarily this like competitive back and forth, but like, I see it as more of like a collaboration. Like, they're going up, and then you're bringing other tribes up, and then there's all this like intermixing, right? Like, you come to the KTC seminar, and then so many of the adjusting ninjas in the KTC are like loving the work that you're doing and the collaboration that you're doing with other people. So like, that's how I think this profession is going to change,
Absolutely. And that's how we make this evolution sustainable, because we've seen so many movements in history that gain momentum and then disappear, and gain momentum and then disappear. And how we make this sustainable for chiropractic is we make it a collective. We have to come together. We can only do so much as individual units. And really, when we move the intelligence of the whole forward, the way we do that is through collaboration and a collective effort. So it's really, I mean, and that's why I was attracted to coming to the camp, was I really saw that while visiting the source and experiencing, some really nice time with Brett, is that's a central tenet to what KTC understands, is that we're better together. It's as simple as that.
Definitely. So Lauren, the last time we were on the podcast, I was looking at, I think it was like September, and I know you were getting ready for a couple big retreats, / service trips, but like really focused on just the self-work, doing the work. And I haven't got the details of them, but like the people who went, I mean, they just loved, the experience. I'm just curious, like, what your experience was, because I think it was wasn't it your first ones or first couple?
Yep.
So I'd love to, just hear about your experience and how they went.
Yeah, well, the first one we took, I took to Cambodia over New Year, and then I've just got home from the second retreat, which we went down to Mexico, and there are opportunities that really meld what has proven true in my career. This coming together of being a chiropractor and giving service and being out in the world, and then very much this internal blossoming of my nervous system and what it means to live clear, what it means to be in alignment. Chiropractors, we're always talking about alignment and clear nervous system, and what became so evident to me is that a lot of chiropractors don't necessarily walk around in alignment or with a clear nervous system. And so the inspiration for these retreats that double as a service trip is teaching tools for chiropractors to return home, to come inward, to learn how to fill your own cup and then serve your community from the overflow. And when we went to Cambodia is a very special place for me, and I think we spoke about that on the last podcast. I was there 5 years ago, spent a considerable amount of time at a meditation and yoga retreat. And I returned there with chiropractors this time. And not only do you start the day, like something I was taught just a couple years ago was be your first client of the day. And that really was reinforced by the teachings that I learned when I did spend time at this retreat center in Cambodia. Was every morning starts with yoga, breathing, meditation. It's this stilling of the grand ocean within, so that then you can move through your day with more peace, more ease, more fun. Once you've taken care of your own needs, it's so much easier to be of service to others, because there's no resentment, there's no emptiness, there's no fatigue or tiredness. And I just wonder how many students and how many graduated docs are out there that are serving from this really fatigued place. And it's just not necessary. There's an abundance of energy in the present moment. And to be in the present moment, you plug yourself back into source. And you need to train for the present moment. Our nervous system is sloppy and weak and has such a small capacity to be in the present moment. The present moment is so overwhelming if we're able to truly be in it and experience it. And so the yogic path in many ways trains for the present moment. A lot of the principles of what KTC teaches is this training for the present moment to increase the size of the bucket, which is an analogy that's used in chiropractic a lot. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, like for me, no, I do know. For me, it's like we need to own what we sell. And that's a concept from law, as nemo dat. The Latin sentence is much longer, but they shorten it to nemo dat. And it's this understanding that we have to own what we sell. I can't sell a piece of land that I don't own, right. I have to own it. And so for me, owning a clear, grounded, open nervous system is where it starts, if that's what I'm selling. If I'm selling alignment, then, being mechanically in alignment, being aligned in your values and your speech and your community and your connections, your relationships, like it's all important. And so these retreats, like we were just down in Mexico this last week, there was a huge part of creating the environment for these 8 women. It's like, we got to start cleaning the insides, because when we're clean and pure, we're just better chiropractors. We're better servers of life, because we have life overwhelming and overflowing from within.
Lauren, do you find that the women that you're working with all had like similar patterns that they needed to work through, and how did they compare with your patterns that you've worked through this point?
Oh, Ray, you're very good at asking great questions. Very insightful. Yeah. So what I'll do, I'll open this up a little bit more than just the women that were on the trip, and I'll open it up to what I've seen in the seminars. Now teaching, having a handful of the women's adjusting seminars under my belt, is yes, there is a trend, hugely so. And the way I start the women's adjusting seminars is, and actually on retreat too, is, let's sit in a circle and check in. And I ask them what inspired them to be there and what motivated them and what's an intention, and, what do they hope to get out of the weekend or the week. And they don't say anything about, I want to deliver a bomb ass side posture or a lightning cervical adjustment. That's not what I hear from the women. What I hear from the women is, I want to be free of the crippling self-doubt. I want to back myself. I want to trust what I feel. And when we boil all those things down, it comes down to partly fear, But for me, fear is this like giant concept, much like love is this giant concept where we don't have, there's not like handholds for us. It's hard to really feel what fear feels like. But when I put it in different language, in terms of what these women are asking to be facilitated in, is to feel confident. They want to know that they know what they're doing is good for the person. They want to trust themselves that power can come through their body, and they have a body that's able to deliver that type of force. And so a lot of what I'm passionate about and what I see the women's movement creating, a space for the women, is a space of like, hey, you know, like, it's teachable, learnable, recreated. We can recreate this learning opportunity of, at the end of this weekend, you're going to feel grounded. This crippling self-doubt that you have, you're not alone. Like, this is what every one of us goes through, is we get these guys predominantly teaching that are twice my size, twice, you know, my height, my weight. They can go to the gym once a month and be as strong as I am working out 4 days a week. You know, it's like it's like apples and oranges, but we're expecting ourselves, you know, the shoulds come in of, we're expecting ourselves to be able to deliver the same goods, and in that case being a chiropractic adjustment. And it's not that the women can't perform that adjustment. It's just that there's this massive hurdle that's unspoken. And then I put them all in a room, and they all suddenly realize that every one of them feels the same, and that I felt the same. It's like, you know, it just doesn't compute when the role models we have in chiropractic we don't see ourselves in them.
Mm. Yeah, you know? That was something that was so huge. I mean, hearing you say that, because I was never in that situation, right? I always got to see men teaching me in everything that I've done, like whether it was sports and chiropractic, and like that is such a hurdle. Like you said, if you don't think you can do it, you're not going to learn. Like, you have to overcome that process first. And if you're learning from someone who's doesn't look like you, not the same size, can't really, it's so hard to teach, be a 6'3" and then teach, you know, 5'4" how to use their body. Like, there's so many disconnects there. And it's under the surface, you know, and this is where the shame framework comes into play, and why Brene Brown and her work has been just so pivotal for me, because it's unspoken, where the women it's either unspoken or completely unaware that these are drivers that are going on under the surface. And as soon as we break through this in what feels like this insurmountable force of like, I'll never be like that, so I'm going to have to go. And then, of course, we've got women love to overthink things, right? And so they've got these busy brains, and they know they need to be good at something. And so there's an element of perfectionism that comes through. Then they'll go and find things that they're really good at, but it just might not be what they really want to be good at. And I do know that, yes, in these circles, they talk about self-doubt, they talk about confidence, they talk about wanting to trust themselves. There is also the element that they do want to deliver bomb ass adjustments, you know? And so it's the paradox. And as I move through life, there's this truth in the paradox. It's always this and that are seemingly opposite forces. And so training to deliver the mechanical that becomes this very unmechanical force, at the same time as training this kindness and this softness and this, like, you know, what comes to mind is like youth coaching of this can-do attitude. You know, they're both important, and I hope to certainly facilitate that in the Nikau retreats and Nikau seminars. You know, the both are important. Lauren, now for you, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the times you didn't have the mentor you are right now for so many women you didn't really have. And
No.
I mean, you had to develop that, through your work and through your journey. And of course you had amazing men teachers, but it's like you still had to do so much of that on your own. Talk me through a little bit about that process. And personally, I think that's why, you've done all that work, and now it's going to be so powerful, transcending or, giving that to the women in the profession.
Yeah. Being able to transmit that. Yeah. I didn't have what I hope to provide for the women in this profession. And I have had the fortune of incredible male mentors, incredible male teachers in chiropractic. But life never lets you down. It's full and complete always. So I have had phenomenal female mentors outside of chiropractic. Now what I've had to do is translate what I've learned outside of chiropractic and distill it into chiropractic. And that is, I think, why what we're doing or what I'm doing is so unique. We haven't seen it before because it is truly birthed from my experience of, being in a fist fight with myself sometimes of how do I bring this here? And when it's all said and done, it's actually all the same. Being a good human out there in the world is exactly the same as being a good human in the world of chiropractic. Being a phenomenal chiropractor and a phenomenal healer is the same as being a phenomenal friend and a phenomenal partner. It's the same. Life is the same. Chiropractic is life, right?
Right.
For me, it is. And so the virtues that I've developed in myself outside of the chiropractic arena are now my greatest strengths inside the chiropractic arena.
Right.
They're the same. Being really like confident and having a phenomenal trust in what you do and knowing that you can serve humanity and be of service, add to the whole. That breathes into everything. You walk down the street with your chin a little higher and your chest a little bit more open and your feet more firmly on the ground. You develop a sense of self that becomes harder to blow over. And so in and of itself, fear is not in the driver's seat then. And so it's all this upward spiral, life and evolution is just, it's amazing how experiences in your youth will absolutely allow you to be better at whatever your dedication is now. They're always adding to the whole.
Right.
And sometimes you just need someone to point that out.
Yeah. And developing that, that sense of self and getting to that place where, you continually evolve your vibrational state or whatever you want to call it. And it's just amazing how your work or that vibration will continue to like raise the people around you too. It's just like you are a reflection for people. So it's just like they see you and then they're like, whoo, like then they see themselves, right? So it's like
exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
And what we see in others, we only see it because we know it within ourselves. It has to be true. If you see something in someone else, you have it within. And that goes for the comfortable and the comfortable. And all we need and as we evolve are these handholds, these places where we can grab onto, where we can gain traction. And it's just, start where you are. Pema Chodron, a wonderful Buddhist teacher. Start where you are. You don't need to be anywhere else. No one's asking you to be anything other than who you are right here, right now, because it's perfect. Of course it is,
Exactly.
Like, I don't look out my beautiful window here and look at this aspen tree and think, oh, I wish you were yellow right now. It's spring. It's meant to be green. It's like nature doesn't judge itself so harshly. And as we start to soften as people, we open up that space for learning. And as we're more comfortable with failing, and as we see that failure isn't actually failure, it's just an opportunity to grow, then, natural curiosity arises, natural play arises. I had a wonderful time in Dallas a month or two ago with the women down there. And what I loved hearing at the end of the seminar was I stopped caring about failure. I didn't actually think about failure the whole week. It was just like trying things out with this body that I have, this crazy nervous system that controls muscles and ligaments and tendons that have to fire in coordination and move into another person's nervous system and another person's tissue and, create this explosion of life within their spine and nervous system and brain. It's like, the magic that has to happen. And how, it's like if we could just remove our self-worth from our skill set for a minute, the opportunity for learning just is amplified.
Right.
Yeah, hugely,
Just,
exponentially.
Yeah, then you go for it. Like you're just not held back at all because you're just so in that space of playfulness and curiosity, and just like from that place you can learn like exponentially. And if that becomes a habit, which we'll all kind of probably go in and out of that place, but it's extraordinary what's possible with that mindset. Yeah.
Well, you're not trying to do it right. At that point, there's no right and wrong. It's play. Play is voluntary. It's effortless. It's not, it's something we want to do. And therefore, playing around with adjusting becomes something that's attractive. Whereas I think a lot of women, maybe, certainly in my experience, it was like, oh, it's just another opportunity to judge myself or another opportunity to do it wrong. Because I haven't been able to get it the 10 other times, so I'll just not do it because the crippling, self-doubt. It's like, that doesn't feel good. No one's nervous system wants to feel like they're not good at something.
Totally.
And so you're just not gonna do it as much. And if you don't do it as much, you're not running that, those neuroplastic changes through this human body that we have. And at the end of the day, it's a skill set. It's like learning to serve in tennis. You got to do it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And still, the best tennis players in the world hit it into the net. Sometimes it just doesn't come together, but it doesn't mean you're bad.
Right. And that's so funny that you say that, because I've been working with some younger students, and especially like my later half of schooling, trying to do that as much as possible. And you just see the frustration in the beginning. And then it's like, and I was there too. Like, I'm coming from that athletic background, wanting to do well. And it's crazy when it does cripple someone, they can stop doing it. And I'm just like, this pain that you're going through right now, you're going to go through it now, and it'll get easier. And to be honest, you're going to go through that forever in a way. Like you're going to start to like, I don't know, you're going to enjoy it a little bit more because it's the excitement of learning and growing. But like as a first, second, third quarter student, that pain, it'll be here now, or it'll be here in your 7th quarter, 8th quarter, when you're forced to like start to figure it out because you're going into clinic. So it's just like, can we cultivate this mindset of like being easy on yourself? Like, this is
or let's open up the conversation even more, because I know that, this podcast is gaining traction out into graduated docs. That pain will be there when you're 2 years out in practice, 5 years out in practice, 10 years out in practice. I don't think it goes away.
You're right.
But how we arm ourselves is this willingness to not know, like releasing the shoulds and just being like, you know what? Like, I don't know that. A beautiful student came to me and she was like, you know what? I was, sick while my class was learning side posture. And so I wasn't at school at that time. And so I missed it. And now I'm surrounded by all my peers who have the skill set and I don't. And you could just see that it was like that was like something that made her less. And it was like, let's just take some perspective here. Like, you weren't in class at that time. Like, you were doing this other really important thing in your like growth and evolution of being human on this planet. And so, I would encourage just like to come full circle back to that first question you asked me of like adopt going back into this realm of seminars and learning from really phenomenal teachers is this willingness to be like, you know what, like I went to school in New Zealand. I didn't have the MLS or the KTC or all of the other incredible ICPA, it's like put together an acronym. They just didn't come down to New Zealand. I remember writing to Arnaud as a first year chiropractic student. So this would have been 2008, 10 years ago. And I would like, I don't really know who you are, but this Path to Mastery club that I've heard because I was involved in WCCS sounds like something that I certainly want to be a part of. And, and he wrote back and he was like, yeah, I'll come to New Zealand if you get me 60 students. And I was like, that's a quarter of my school. So like now at the point of where I am in practice, it's like, I am like a kid in a candy shop, it's like, oh my gosh, all these amazing things that I never was exposed to as a student, that willingness to just jump back into something and be okay that I'm good at other things, but I might not be like, that this is new. Like, how can I be good at something I haven't spent a lot of time, energy, or resources on?
Right. And that like openness allows you like your entire career, if you can stay like that, just like the opportunity to learn. And there was this Dr. Austin, he works at the Source. He was just giving me this example of like molding clay, right? If it's a certain state, it's like you can mold it, but then when it becomes hardened, like you have to like crack it. Like, there's so much more work to get it back to that mold state. And it's like, even though the molding is uncomfortable, but it's like that, because there's maybe this not this like 100% certainty, but like that molding allows you to just like continuing to like have that beginner's mind and grow and learn and like let your ego down and learn from, somebody else.
Yeah. I mean, I love that analogy. It's like when you start to get really hardened, I mean, I think that's just the nature of life, to keep cracking you open. And getting cracked open, you can imagine like using this analogy of clay. It's messy. It goes everywhere. It's hard to build yourself back together. Yeah. So, wouldn't it be so wonderful to not let yourself become hardened, to not let the ego, put a flag at the top of the mountain and say, I got this. It's always willing. It's like, what? This is my understanding so far. And I learned so much from my students. And this is the example of this two-way street. It's like, I might be, the one presenting information and being thanked at the end, but I'm thanking them and I'm taking away and appreciating so much. And that's community, this sense of equality. That's very, very important to me. I think that's to hold that. Yeah,
and then they like see you eye to eye. Like that's another thing that I've noticed. It's like putting people on these pedestals. Like it's just a weird energetic like thing that happens. It's just like the second, and that's a lot of time that like if I'm looking at you, putting you on this pedestal, it's like not really you. I mean, you can create a space as best you can for that not to happen, but like that's kind of a lot of the inner work with me, like having to not do that with people.
Yeah, I mean, carry on.
No, you're good. I was just, I think, I think you do that really well, but I think that I was having a conversation with another doc and she's like, yeah, it's not really my problem, that, and I was like, because people didn't want to talk to her because she was intimidating. And I'm like, but then there was so much gold on it when you got over that, fear of talking to someone who you're intimidated by. You know, it's just like, that's the inner work that you have to overcome. For whatever reason, you don't feel worthy enough to like talk to them, you know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And yeah, and that's, I can see what I'm hearing, is that this pedestal is almost like a two-way street, right? It's like, don't put someone or yourself on a pedestal. And I was always told, don't put anyone on a pedestal, because it's a long way for them to fall. And that's important, because if you put your teacher or your mentor or someone in your community or in society on a pedestal, and then, you know, you hear something about them or you see that they're human, it's a long way for them to fall. And that's not their fault. They're human. Right. But at the same time, like, let's not put ourselves below someone. Definitely. That's also very, very important. And really talking in this larger context of learning, you know, same thing with students. It's like, don't put yourself below your peer or your colleague, or it's all the same. We all have our gifts and our room for improvement. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Lauren, you know, you talked about kind of your morning routine and having, you know, the silence and the breath, you know, and just being like that rock for you in the morning, like no matter what. I would love for you to tell our listeners a little bit about that, because I'm so interested in, you know, different people's like paths of growth. You know, some people, you know, they might hear you speak and like things click really quickly, and then other people, it's like, it's a little bit slower of a journey, and there's no right or wrong, but it's like these strategies that you've had in place that are really like moving the needle quickly. You know, I'd love for you to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, moving the needle quickly. You want to move the needle quickly? Have a morning practice. The reason why that is, and I'll go into my personal practice just a little bit, but to tune the instrument, you know, and that's how I think of it, is every morning I'm tuning the instrument. I'm tuning my nervous system. I'm tuning my body, my breath, my mind, my heart. I'm tuning this all so that I can be in the world in a way that I just love being in the world. It's comfortable and fun to be in the world when I feel comfortable and fun on the inside. And so by preparing the system, and I use just a simple 3% rule, like reinvest 3% of my day back into myself, and that equates to 45 minutes. So 45 minutes every morning. I'm on my yoga mat and I do, you know, 20 minutes of really basic asana practice, because asana practice, you know, the postures of yoga were never designed to be used in there exclusively. You know, it was always as a preparation for meditation, to be comfortable, to sit still. And so 20 minutes of that, and I do 5 minutes pranayama, so 5 minutes just breath practice, and then a 20-minute sitting practice. And I use the terminology sitting practice because if you use the word meditation, then it conjures up all of these ideas that it's this most serene experience of sitting still and, you know, being completely in bliss state. And that is completely untrue. And to sit still in meditation, I'm using the air quotes, is just a time to quieten the mind and to look within. Because what happens and what we see in a lot of research, polyvagal theory is a great example of when we have trauma in our life, when we have stress in our life, when our nervous system is operating on alert, is all of our senses, they turn outward. And we're always running, essentially. We're always moving, this inability to be still. And that's why I say, like, being in the present moment takes training. To being in the present moment is sitting down and closing your eyes and blocking your ears to a certain extent and just being inside the four walls of our body. And at that point, you get to see how crazy your mind is. It's like a Tasmanian devil that you put on a leash at first, it's like your mind just starts to go crazy and it starts to tell you all these reasons why you shouldn't be sitting still and all these things that you've forgotten to do. And it's very uncomfortable for a new meditator. And this is the magic, like to move the needle quickly, to use your analogy of how to move the needle quickly. I have found nothing more powerful than sit still, be be present, be with your experience. And for me, it's seamless with chiropractic. What am I trying to do all day, every day with all my people? It's like clear the nervous system, create an opportunity to have a clearer and clearer and clearer nervous system. Why? Why do we want to have a clear nervous system? So that we can feel. Our nervous system is the most exciting system ever. It's like it allows us to experience life. And why not experience life in the present moment? Because that's where all the colors and the feelings and the smells and the light and that's where the magic happens, is right here. It's not in the future. It's not in the past. Those are just figments of our imagination. Right. And for me to prepare and tune my nervous system every morning through yoga, breathing, meditation, and the women that have been on the Cambodia trip and been on the Mexico trip know that in opening circle, day one, moment one, I tell them what is non-negotiable. I was like, the non-negotiable is morning practice. You absolutely have to be here. If you're not, I'm going to drag you out of bed. Because there's always resistance. There's always resistance to being still. There's always resistance. It's overwhelming to be present and, but it's the most important. For me, that's chiropractic.
Yes. And just reflecting a little bit, going back to like when you're putting your hands on somebody, and we've talked about this on the podcast, but it's just so fun to go back to, because it's like when your system is so clear in tune, it's just like what you're able to sense from that person, and then almost like what they're willing to like share with you. It seems like when you're so connected with them, it's just like this safe space becomes so evident that they're willing to go places with you, and consciously or subconsciously they don't even know why, but it's just like there's this like trust with your presence. Well,
if we think about for anyone that's played guitar or string instrument, when I pluck the G string, all the other G strings and G string. That's gonna get some laughs.
That's
F string. The F string. It's like all the other strings. In the field, in the vicinity of what can sense that vibration will also start to vibrate. And so, if we have cultivated these strong tones of trust, of safety, of creativity, of play, of self-acceptance, of courage, of kindness, this is the music that we're giving the opportunity for the people on our table to start to resonate with. Because when we put in that adjustive force, or when we apply that, that special something that allows the nervous system to all of a sudden stop and come into surprise and come into presence, what it does is, like, Sue Brown was a wonderful teacher of mine, and I had very much the fortune to spend a lot of time with Sue down in New Zealand. She would come down and she would always say the chiropractic adjustment it throws the system into chaos, and it's much like a snow globe. Like you shake the snow globe and all the snow comes up, and it gives the opportunity, the body or the intelligence of the system, a second opportunity to reorganize. And my question was always, well, reorganize to what? Like, what's it reorganizing to? Well, it's reorganizing to the field. Well, then what influences the field? Well, a lot of things influence the field. The chiropractor influences the field, especially if you have big presence. Chiropractors with big presence tend to get big results, right? We see this a lot. Right. And so big presence is just a lot of like music coming out of these people's systems, just transmitting it's like a boom box, and if the transmission is all of these natural seeds of life, which are the naturalness of being human, we're going to allow that music to come out in our patients far more quickly than kind of trudging along and not being cognizant of the field. And it's like, well, I'm just going to put this here and put this into place and give you this supplement. It's like, no, it's the adjustment with that something, that special something. And that special something is the philosophy of chiropractic. That's why it's so important for us to keep kind of coming back as a touchstone to that there is a universal intelligence. There is an innate intelligence. This thing we're walking around in called, planet Earth, it coordinates itself. Yes. And that what coordinates this big orb of creation is always present. It's always present. And so when we put that adjustive force into someone, we're giving that system another opportunity to realize that it ain't alone, that it's tending toward health and well-being, that its nervous system is what transmits information in the body. And as long as you got some good stuff at the other end in terms of great nutrition, movement, breath, community, all of the nice neurotransmitters that make us feel safe and secure, then that system will thrive. It's inevitable. It's the natural directive of living systems.
Hearing you speak right there, I just instantly went to thinking about, someone who's listening right now, who maybe they just got on the podcast for the first time. And it's like, oh man, just thinking about trying to move a bone. It's like,
good point.
It's so inspiring. It's just like, gosh, there's so much depth to what we do other than, laterally flex and lateral to medial, P to A, I to S. It's like, we get caught in like the little details of...
We do. And thank you for bringing my feet back to the ground, because that's the full expansion, right? And then it comes straight back down to moving a bone. What an incredible skill set to learn. What a gift you will do for someone. Like that in and of itself, it's like, yes, it's kindergarten, but you can get really, really good at kindergarten and you will absolutely serve a huge amount of people by being able to analyze the spine for joint restriction, and it's like, and release the joint restriction. The neurology is going to work better. There's going to be less noise in the brain. You're going to start to shunt information into more optimal places in the brain, like prefrontal cortex. They're going to start to see life in a different way. Just doing that, you're going to serve a huge. So it's a continuum, totally a continuum.
Yes.
And you don't need to play, in parts of the continuum you don't want to play, and that's why finding your community and your sense of belonging and what part of this continuum speaks to you. The opportunity to serve yourself and your community is equal no matter where you are on that, because you're just doing what's true to you.
But I think it's so important. I mean, that said, it's just like, even for someone, or even a doc, who's listening, that's never like saw this side of the continuum of what's possible. It's like, even if you're at that level of moving a bone, like for me, it's always like seeing what's possible. It's just like, it's always so inspiring. I think about when I was in Little League, like playing T-ball, like, my first game of going to a professional baseball game, I was like, I didn't even know that was possible, and it's just like, it's so powerful just to see the full spectrum, the full continuum, so it's just like, just that evolution that we're, innately driven towards, I think, and that's why it's so powerful for these conversations. But yeah, it brought a smile to my face, just, hearing you just go for it right there. And I'm like, I love it.
And I think it's important just to add onto that for, the people listening. It's like, if this does, light your fire a little bit or get you really curious about something different, is to be really watchful for making what you're doing now wrong. I think that's the pothole. What you're doing right now is awesome and has been totally, fulfilling for you maybe to right now. And now it's just this opportunity of like, oh, what's over there? Like, I never saw that, what's going on over there, and having this curiosity, but not like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's like, keep doing what you're doing and practice and being excited about that as you are diving into this new exploration within yourself, whether it's you're inspired about meditation or you're inspired about, cultivating more different virtues in your life, or coming into like a tonal model of analysis, or diving back into the mechanics and the athletics of chiropractic. It all serves. And so to just keep building, additions onto your house, rather than like bowling it down every time you get a new idea. Right. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And there's times, when I'm interviewing people and you get drawn, to what they're talking about, and it can pull you away and get you in that mode of thinking like what I'm doing is not right. And so I'm glad you hit on that point, because it's like I want to highlight these different aspects of the art of chiropractic and people who apply the application differently. And it's all just to see what's possible. And I was telling someone when I was down in Mexico, we were having this conversation as we were walking along the beach, and it's like, I hope I don't practice the way I started at the end. It's like, I hope by the time I'm my 60, 70, 80, like I hope it's way different than how I started. Because it's just like, that means I just continuing to learn, and not saying how I started was wrong, but I just like at the point I was just called, and I allowed myself to grow and evolve. And, and I think that's okay too for the people that you're serving. Like if you don't end up doing the exact same thing, like I think they'll appreciate that. And that's probably what docs, they get scared of too. It's just like, I started people this way and now different, I'm going to lose the people. But
yeah, and I think that whole thing of being scared of changing things in practice, it's like, well, my people are used to me doing this. That's why it's like, be careful not to leapfrog into tactics and to changing things. Just let it marinate within who you are and your own study and your own self-inquiry, and then it'll come out naturally. It'll be a very natural process. It'll be effortless. Rather than jumping to, wow, I'm going to change my first visit and everyone's going to be like this plan and not this. And, it's like, it's not necessary. We call that pendulum swinging, going from one extreme to another. And it's not a gentle way to walk in the world.
Yeah. And, at the end of the day, you talk about that special something, like that is so much of what, the people that you serve are drawn to and connected to. Some of these other little details, it's like, yeah, they'll notice it, but it's like who you are as a person at the end of the day is like what they're called to, because as you grow, like their reflection of themselves are growing, and, they're coming into this life that they never thought possible. So it's exciting. Lauren, there was a couple things that, transitioning a little bit, or not really, actually, I'm still along the same lines, but just to quote you said something along the lines of like, your tolerance for vulnerability expands because you can never lose the home you created. And I guess the tolerance for vulnerability, that like hit me hard, because that's something that that's some work that's like continuing to show up for me, and I have so much resistance to it, based off of the patterns that I've had growing up, and, being a man in this masculine, like not being able to go there. Yeah. What's your intention with that statement?
My tolerance for vulnerability expands. And what was the second part? As I become more at home within myself? Yeah,
because you can never lose the home you created.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that's what I said when I read that.
Yeah, so I guess there's some foundational building blocks that will kind of lie down to build toward where this quote kind of came from. And it is having a skill in your hands is is one of those building blocks. Feeling like you're good at what you want to be good at. You know, it's like these students and chiropractors, we invest so much of really who we are. Chiropractic is full of what I've noticed of people that really identify their identity as being a chiropractor. And so it's very fulfilling for these people to feel like they're being good at that. But also being good at or feeling fulfilled in your life in terms of being at home within yourself is to like who you are. Very simply, just to like who you are, to be proud of the way you walk in the world, to keep agreements, to follow through on things you say you're going to follow, you're going to do, to be able to turn to yourself in times of challenge and comfort yourself, to have patience for your learning process, to be okay that you've made mistakes. These are all the things. This is like the dining room table and the chair and the light bulb and, the statues and the coat rack. It's each one of these is, if you can come home to a beautiful house of bravery and softness, these qualities that I've talked about, that we've talked about today, like that. When you have that in your home, it doesn't matter what you go out into the world to do. It's like you can go out and have, eggs thrown at you and tomatoes and, have a really hard day at work or whatever it is. And you get to come home to this great house, this great internal world that you've created and that you tend to, and that's the morning practice. I tend to that every morning. It's like, how can I bring, faith and intuition and trust and safety? Like, these are all feeling states. It's the groove that our neurology slips into. It's our go-to operating system. And when your go-to operating system for the way your nervous system broadcasts to your cells in your body, when that is kind and supportive and loving, then of course you can be more vulnerable in the world. Stand me on the biggest stage and it doesn't matter what happens, because it's like, what? I might screw it up, but at least I get to come home to this operating system that's like, Lauren, you're awesome. Like your courage, your willingness to be vulnerable in the world and to be honest and speak your truth expands, because no one can take away that operating system. And getting adjusted is part of that. But so there's a lot of chiropractic is this very big idea, and it's a philosophy, science, and art, and to move it through your own being. No one can take that away.
Right.
I can get on this podcast and tell you that this is what chiropractic is, and 10 people can email me and be like, I don't know what you're talking about. That's not chiropractic. And I can be like, you know what? That's okay. Like, we all have our own understanding. It's like,
definitely.
It's cool.
Yeah, it is. And that's such a huge point, because it's like in all of our lives, I mean, we're going to be going out there and we're doing the unconventional in so many ways that it's like, you're gonna get some backlash at times, and people, telling you things or comments or whatever it is. And it's like, if you can always come home to that place, and that's why you said it's like, that's a non-negotiable, like that practice every single day. You have to build your home and cultivate it and nurture it.
And to some people that might be dance, to some people that might be running, to some people, what is it in your life that brings you home to we know what home feels like. It's, when did you experience yourself fully? When do you feel the most connected to yourself? Do that more often. Do that daily. That's all the invitation is.
Yes. Yeah. Speaking of that, I just recently started to go on some more hikes just by myself, about an hour near this, kind of up behind these mountains right near my house. And it's crazy. I mean, in the beginning, there was so much resistance for me to want to just put a podcast and something in my ear while I was walking. And I was like, no, dude, just go silent. And it's had such a profound impact on my days. And I'm like, wow, just an hour by myself walking. It's just like, okay, I think that's my thing right now. And that thing might change, but like that's filling me up so much.
I love hearing that. That's certainly been my experience is there's great resistance to silence.
Yes.
Great resistance. And anything that your ego will resist that much, there's that equal and opposite reward. And so if anyone has an opportunity to, and this is where discipline comes in too, because I don't want to do morning practice every day.
Right.
Like some days I don't want to get dressed. I just want to have my day in my pajamas. It's the same thing. Like it's like, but you get up and you do it. You shower, you change, you do your morning practice. Like it's a part of this. So it's like not every day do I want to go for a walk or ride my bike without some jamming tunes. But that 1 hour that you describe, I'm sure feels like longer because in silence, it's like you probably like refill, 4 hours worth, 4 days worth.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people, and I would really encourage you if you're listening and not cultivating silence, to play with it. Be curious, it's like, hey, what will 20 minutes be like? I always listen to music in the car. What would it be like to drive to your commute, without it? And what you might be surprised. You might really, really tap into some good feeling states.
Yes, for sure. Lauren, I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and it was so fun just having it be a little bit kind of last minute in its creation, but it was so much fun. But I would love to take this just the last little part of the interview and talk about your seminar next weekend that's coming up in the Bay Area, and what your intention is with it, and what people can expect.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to be out with you guys in the Life West community in Oakland, May 19th, 20th, so Saturday, Sunday. And it'll be just like what we've talked about here, marrying this internal, landscape with the skill set and with the very simple rotation, lateral flexion, the nuts and bolts. We have to learn the alphabet before we can, put words together, and then before we can create this, playful language of poetry and song. It's like these different steps. So the Women's Adjusting Seminar is all about creating a really safe space, playful space, creative space for women to come together and feel that sisterhood. What we touched on is like, oh, you feel this, you feel this, you feel this. Wow. That, and then something special happens when we see what we thought was impossible possible. There is something about being in a space of powerful female, energy where it's like, oh, I can do that. Like I see myself in that, and that's the special something of the seminar. And then I'm doing a really cool thing. I'm really looking forward to collaborating with my chiropractic sister, Devin Vrana, the Friday night beforehand. It's a free, open to all philosophy jam that the guys at The Source are hosting us for, which is, we're really grateful to be in that space, to be able to play in that space. And that's, I think, 6 till 9 p.m. Everything's in Facebook land. So if you want any more information, but those are the two exciting kind of opportunities to come and hang out in the Bay Area. And then I'm going to be out in Kansas City 2 weeks after that, beginning of June. So those are the two women's seminars on the books coming up.
Awesome. And so Facebook is the best way to register and connect with you on some of those, on your personal page. I know some of them are on the schools have their different pages, but
yep. And you can always find everything on my website, nikauchiropractic.com.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll have those in the show notes and the website and stuff. So yeah, I'm excited. Like I mentioned, I posted on the event page. I have my part 4 boards that Friday and Saturday, but I'm gonna try and catch. Is it Philosophy night? Just women or open to everybody? Or?
Nope, open to everyone.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where it's like you kind of got to pick your people and really serve them. And so the female community is just kind of where my focus is right now. But at any and every opportunity opening up to, our brothers in chiropractic, because they're amazing and equally as important. And so that Friday night, we look forward to just open house and free for all.
Yes. And just to give our listeners a little bit, of a heads up, having you and Dev and Verona on the podcast, we're going to make that happen relatively soon. So I'm really excited for that conversation. So they can definitely stay tuned up for that, because I just can't wait to see what's going to happen with that collaboration.
Me neither. She's on fire, man. That woman. Wow. Talk about just being super impressed with her force. I'm super looking forward to jumping on the podcast together and seeing what the three of us, what the rabbit hole, what the yellow brick road we go down is.
Yes, I can't wait. Awesome. And then so we'll have your Nikau chiropractic.com. We'll have just connections to Facebook and stuff for our listeners. But thank you again, Lauren, for this conversation. It's so much fun to connect with you, and I really look forward to seeing you next weekend.
Me too. Can't wait.
All right, we'll talk soon.
All right, thanks, Ray.
All right, see ya. All right, TAC listeners, if you enjoy this one, head over to iTunes or Stitcher so you can subscribe to the podcast and get an automatic download of our newest episode each and every week. While you're at it, we love a review, a comment, a rating, anything that will allow us to reach more docs and more students and continue to raise the bar in chiropractic performance training. If you haven't yet checked out the artfulchiropractor.com, you can do that for show notes for this episode and previous ones, along with any of the resources that our docs are dropping. And if you haven't yet checked out the Kairos Training Culture Community Facebook page, you have to get there, send a request with a message of who you are and why you want to be a part of the group, because there are so many amazing golden nuggets that are being dropped every single day that are elevating the chiropractic performance game. So with that, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your week as always, and until next time, peace.